Hello, you're listening to the Big Reef Podcast, yet another edition of our Patreon exclusive series where I, Hayden, will be interviewing local artists, musicians, promoters, etc., people that contribute to Australia's art and music scene. Yesterday I sat down with two Canberra local legends, Georgia Arndell and Daan Steffens. Georgia is a photographer. She also runs a magazine called Juvenile Magazine, which highlights local musicians here in Canberra. Daan runs Gutwrench Records. He also plays drums in Spouse and At Last Broadcast. Gutwrench Records is a fantastic local DIY event organisation. They put on awesome DIY gigs around Canberra in very unique spaces that are free and all ages. Georgia's a fantastic photographer. She does great live photography for bands as well as press photos. We talk about all of this stuff, and the two of them have paired up to create make a documentary about a slew of DIY shows that took place through Canberra in summer of 23-24. So we talk about that as well. Look, it was a sick conversation. I hope you really enjoy it. But if you're not listening to this through the Big Reef Patreon feed, you're only going to get to hear half of it. So please, if you'd like to hear the full conversation, which does, as they say, go off, go to www.patreon.com/Big Reef, and you could subscribe there for $8.50 in Australian quintessential dollars per month, and you'll get access to all kinds of sick shit. I just posted a discount link to our upcoming show in August, so you can get those tickets much cheaper than you would otherwise if you're a Patreon member. Head over there and grab that, and also enjoy all of the other podcasts in their full glory with other legends such as Real Name, the rapper from Melbourne who rocks, or Leonardo Sunshine from the Tin Knees, who I spoke to last week. Fantastic chats. Okay, enough of that. Please enjoy my chat with Georgia Arndell and Daan Steffens. You're listening to the Big Reef Podcast. We're back. We're fucking going for it. It's Hayden again. Sorry about that. I'm here with two of Canberra's greatest shining young beacons of hope in the music industry. We've got Georgia Arndell.
Hi.
And we've got Daan Steffens.
Hello.
Guys, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's a total pleasure to have you here. I want to give a quick background on both of you. Georgia, you're primarily a photographer. Mm-hmm. I would go as far as to say you're a content maker.
Ooh, yeah. I'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that.
You're making content. You're doing like video interviews and stuff like
that.
That
is true. I do create content.
Musicians.
Yeah.
Famously, you interviewed the band Big Reef.
Yes.
On your Instagram. And
probably the biggest band to date.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Daan, you are a one-person sort of Goliath in Canberra running Gutwrench Records. I mean, is it fair to say that you run Gutwrench Records yourself?
Yeah, I have a lot of help.
Get that microphone up near you.
So
I
have a lot of help.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And Gutwrench is a record label, an events organisation, a DIY punk movement in Canberra. You put on shows.
That is very kind. Yes.
Yeah. And some of the more interesting shows around Canberra. So it's so cool to have you both here to talk about. I'd like to get into your histories in the arts scene, your histories in music, understand why it is you do what you do, why you've ended up here, if that's okay.
Of course.
But I think it might be nice to talk about how you two know each other first, because
yes.
You're friends, you're connected, you sort of run in the same circles with the events and the photography that's taken at the events. Mm-hmm. So how did you guys meet?
So I think about 2 years ago or 3 years ago maybe, in around 2021, I was asked by Spouse, which is a band that Daan is in, to photograph, I think, their first ever set at Sideway. And Sideway is a beautiful place that recently shut down in Canberra. Rest in peace, Sideway. And this was when I was first ever doing photography. ever. And I think it was one of my first paid gigs, and so this was like a massive deal to me, and I always thought,
Can I just quickly ask, so it was your first time doing paid photography. Had you studied photography, or you DIY sort of taught yourself kind of thing? Like, what was the history before this?
I think no. So I went to University of Canberra for a degree in film production, but actually film and photography are actually so different to do. And usually when you're studying film, you're doing all different kinds of roles. So actually doing photography was pretty DIY for me. I'd learned just through high school and like doing lots of like portraits of friends, which I feel like is how anybody starts out. And then I think wanted to keep going to gigs in Canberra. And then I saw photographers there and I'm like, I didn't even know really that this was a thing. And then I started out and, Daan's band Spouse asked me to shoot for them. I charged for the first time. That was really nerve-wracking. And then I met these, 4 members of this band, now 5. And it was just so incredible. I was like, these are wonderful people. And then I've really kind of shot for them mostly ever since, and it's been a few years now. And that's how I met Daan.
Daan, why did you guys as Spouse decide to reach out to Georgia?
I have no idea. I truly have no idea. We were talking about this just the other day, and I don't have any idea how we knew about you. But you thought maybe it was because you'd shot Flower Market at the Polish Club, and we knew Ed and Charlie from Flower Market. So I'm assuming it must have been that, but I have no idea. But it is really interesting that you didn't know that there was you could be a local gig photographer. Yeah. Because I feel like that was my experience with music was I didn't know of any local bands. And then when I found out you could be in a local band, I was like, that's crazy. So it's really...
it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's really funny that you have that for photography, that you didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
In both of those cases, for both of you, was there a little bit of imposter syndrome going on? Like, oh, you can do this, now I'm doing it. Am I allowed to be doing it kind of thing?
For me, totally. And so I started out with photography by sort of shadowing another awesome photographer in Canberra, Meg Houghton. Actually, can you cut that? Or can we cut anything?
I hate cutting things, but...
Sorry, I don't know if you say your name Houghton or Houghton.
I've always said Meg Houghton, but...
I'm just going to say, I'm so sorry.
No, don't be. I can cut it. I can cut it if you like. 5:30. I'm going to actually write that down because last time...
I'm so sorry. No, just because I'm like, fuck, I'm going to say her name wrong.
We're not doing this anymore. No, 5.
But I was like, wait, what's happened with Meg? What?
Yeah,
I'm like, I actually hate her. No.
Yeah, you were like, no, we need to cut that. I can't
I'm
mention
so
her.
sorry. Oh my God.
Okay, so you were shadowing Meg here in Canberra, a fantastic photographer. I think maybe... am I allowed to say it?
Yeah.
Sorry. You were shadowing a local photographer. Yep.
So, when I first started photography, I was shadowing a photographer in Canberra called Meg. She's amazing. And I started out at this place called Transit Bar, and she, I think, was getting paid to be there because she's great. Yeah, by the venue. And she just said one time, just bring your camera along. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And so I sat with her in the pit and we were photographing even this touring band. And I actually had no idea if I was really allowed to be there because the venue didn't really know about me that much. But Meg was wonderful. She traded lenses with me throughout the show, which is huge to trust somebody with, a very expensive gear. And for the longest time I have felt imposter syndrome in what I do. Even if I'm being paid to be there by a band, I'm often like, oh my God, how's this even gonna go? Or in the lead up to a gig, if I know I've got a gig that week, I'll be anxious all week because I'm I have no idea if these photos are gonna turn out
that's
okay.
That's still true now? You still feel that way? Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. Because I'm always very happy with how
your work is so good as well.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
But it's sort of really affirming when you hear someone who's clearly fantastic at what they do and they're just still fucking nervous every time. Because
thank you.
I'm fantastic at what I do.
I also.
I'm surprised that you're nervous. But I guess, yeah, I guess I'm always nervous for like playing a show or something.
Did you feel imposter syndrome too?
Excuse me, this is my podcast.
I'll just go real quick.
I'll edit that out as well. No, but I was going to ask the exact same question. You had this sort of imposter syndrome thing because you said just before, like you had a realization, like, oh, you can be in a local band, which for some reason to me seems so much of a stranger thing to think in. Oh, you're allowed to rock up and take photos. Like, oh, you're allowed to be in a band. Of course, you're allowed to be in a band.
Yeah,
how do you think bands happen?
I think it was just like me being a kid wanting to be a musician, and all the musicians that I knew about were like super mega stars and stuff.
Right.
And then when I was in like high school, the bands that I loved were like, again, like, you know, like household name rock bands. And I always assumed, I don't know, like I knew that those bands started
somewhere
playing to nobody or whatever, but I didn't think that actually was happening, and I had no idea it was going on like in Canberra. Like what the years when I was in like high school and college, like there was like amazing stuff happening in Canberra that I had no idea about. Right. Because it was just like not in my sphere at all, and no one ever like told me about it. Mm-hmm.
So at what age were you? So
yeah, so I didn't know about anything. I always just assumed like if I ever want to be in a band or do anything, like I'd played music with friends and stuff, but I was like, if I want to do anything with music, I have to move to like a big city because that's where things happen. And then in one of my like college bands, we got asked to open for a band from Sydney, and they were playing at the Phoenix Bar, and that was like my first introduction to any of this stuff. Like playing the Phoenix, and then just seeing that there was like, you know, pardon me, like a handful of other bands that were all like also like our age, like 16, 17 or whatever. And then after that first night playing at the Phoenix, like, you know, we met like whatever, like half a dozen other bands, and then you're just like, oh my God, what? And then we just kept getting asked to do more gigs, and then you meet more people, and then yeah, but just like I just didn't know that was possible, and I certainly didn't think that there was like, you know, venues where people were playing until I like actually saw it.
What was it? Was it sort of exciting to realize that existed here in Canberra? Yeah,
because I don't know what I thought prior to that. I was just like, that just doesn't exist, because I had no idea about it. But then finding it was just like, oh my God, this is like, you know, it's like a, you know, it's like discovering like a little like secret society or something. Yeah. Like there's this whole thing going on. Like, you know, it's like there's a bunch of insects under a rock. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it's a really good analogy, because it's not like, and the horrible thing about it is a lot of the time that those insects are fucking screaming as loud as they possibly. Look at us, we're doing all this sick shit.
That's so true. That is so true.
It feels like that a lot of the time.
You pick up the rock and you're like, ew. And then
no, thank you.
That's nasty.
But yeah, it did. Yeah, just seeing that and then just being like, oh my God, and then being like, oh, there's bands from like Sydney and Melbourne and like whatever and blah blah. So yeah, I don't know if I ever felt imposter syndrome of like I can't. I mean, I guess like I felt like an outlier because I was like, oh, I've only just discovered this thing and people have known about it for longer than me, and like this isn't like my thing.
Right. You were asking for permission to come into a space kind of thing?
Yeah. Like, but I feel like everyone probably feels like that. Like you're like, whenever a new band starts up, I'm sure that they are like, there's already a scene happening and I'm like, trying to get into it, as opposed to like,
you don't just let yourself into someone's house, right?
Yeah,
you knock on the door first.
That is true.
Yeah,
that's so interesting.
Okay, I want to find out. So you were playing in bands as a teenager or a late teenager. When did Spouse start up, and how premeditated was the sound of that band? And I sort of hesitate to put a label on what you guys do. I guess there's like elements of, I don't know, grungy 90s alt rock, but there's also a shoegazy sort of vibe there. How would you classify yourselves, and how premeditated is that sound? Like, was it planned out, let's make a band that makes this kind of music, or?
No, not really. Spouse came about from the remnants. So Spouse is me, Josh, Emily, Ezra, and Emmett. And Emily, Ezra, and I were in a band prior to Spouse called Milu. And we were around for like 6 months to a year. I think we played 2 shows. And then the bass player moved away. And then we wanted to keep doing a band with the 3 of us. So then we sort of like put a call out, and I sort of knew Josh, but not really. Like I met Josh at the Sesame Girl music video shoot, and we just like were chatting that day. I think we were just like the 2 nervous people in a group of people, so we just clung to each other. And then I think we all put up a story being like, we're looking, for a bassist to like start this new band, and Josh was like, yeah, I play bass. Turns out he didn't play bass, but he played guitar, but he like had never played bass. And we were like, cool, let's do like, sort of like an audition thing. So we like sent him a bunch of covers we'd been learning, and it was like a slow pulp song and something else, and we're like, learn this. And then Josh like bought a bass for that for that audition, which is so sweet. And I didn't know that until like ages later.
Oh, that's nice.
Bought a bass. So then he came, and we just he just was playing, and it was really fun. And then we just started jamming on a song that Emily, Ezra, and I started writing, which was a song called Star Sticker, which is like sort of a semi-retired Spouse song, but it was like the first song we wrote with Josh. But when we started out, it was very much like, I don't know, like a lot more like Pixies inspired. Like we were doing like a slow pulp cover. We were playing, I can't remember what the band's called anymore, but we were doing a lot of like sort of like 90s guitar rock sort of stuff. I don't know if we ever had any like greater direction.
Yes, but did it just kind of converge out of these are the styles that all of you individually kind of... And are there ever any fights of like someone brings like a riff or a song or something, and like one of you is like, I don't really dig this kind of music? Like, does that, or are you all pretty well?
In the beginning, no, because we were just like, it was just like 4 people with different music tastes, and like I feel like then like anything that went into the Spouse machine came out as a Spouse song, so it didn't really matter. And like Ezra was writing a lot of riffs and bringing riffs in, and then we would just jam on them and have a song at the end of the day, which is like crazy to think about now, because our process now is like so much longer.
Right.
But then like we would like practice, and we could just like write a song in an afternoon.
This is how it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And now it's not so much. Not so much,
just because we have like, I guess, I don't know, the process is different now, which is not to say it's not for better or for worse. It's just like a different process now. But then, I guess over time, Emily started bringing a lot more riffs, and that's sort of been like, I think Emily's music exploration and the stuff that they've been listening to has like influenced where Spouse has been heading recently. Like they've always been sort of into the sort of stuff that we're playing now, but they started just like they're very prolific. So Emily's been just bringing a lot of vocal ideas and riff ideas, and a lot of the like current writing process is like Emily bringing either like a riff or a loose structure or just like a melodic idea, and then us like fleshing it out over like a period of time. So that's what we're doing now. Okay. Which a lot of it has just been like brought about by what Emily's been bringing to the band.
Interesting. We'll also talk a little bit about your other band or bands, At Last Broadcast, and Dead Feds is no longer.
Dead Feds is At Last Broadcast.
Same, just a new
name.
What do they say in marketing? Same something taste, new name or something. I tried. Sorry,
rebrand.
Yeah, rebrand. Yeah,
it was a glow up.
I very seldom. I have a love-hate relationship with marketing and just marketing in general. But there was a product that I recently reached for, and they'd changed the name of it. They'd put like an extra on the end of it, and I went to grab it off the shelf, and I'm like, oh no, this looks like it's like they've made it more chocolatey or something. I want the original. And then right below the extra, it said same taste, just new name. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Anyway, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, when they get the brand new packaging.
Yeah.
Like, same
You didn't
flavor
need to
you know and
change.
trust.
Exactly.
Like, oh,
yeah.
thank God.
Oh, you know what? It was blue cheese, and it said like extra strong. I'm like, I like blue cheese, but like that when you're talking about blue cheese,
Yeah.
and you're making it extra strong. I
Like-
don't know if I'm bringing this. Other people are going to eat it. Where's just the normal blue cheese? And then it was like, don't worry. It's the same one. We just decided it's called extra strong blue cheese. Thank you, Aldi, for doing that.
Yeah, stand out.
Georgia, the photography. So you're talking about getting into photography and it being at live events, taking photos of bands and stuff like this. Were you ever interested? Are you interested? And do you do? I don't know. My ignorance in the world of photography is about to show, but you know, still life photography or anything outside of that, or is it primarily you like having subjects like a band or?
I'm in the Facebook group, the Whitlam community Facebook group, and someone was asking for a newborn photographer recently. So that
Or
could
wedding
be-
photography or something like this.
Yeah.
Like, is any of that any interest to you?
It's funny. So, yeah, I've been doing music photography for a long time now, and I think there's so many different elements to it that are amazing compared to other forms of photography. I've done real estate photography,
Right.
which was awful.
Yeah. Right.
I've done.
I knew about this.
I've done wedding photography. Second shot as a second shooter for the primary
From the
photographer.
grassy knoll.
Pun?
Sorry, second shooter.
What the freak? Yeah, second shooter is me. But I think wedding photography is really beautiful and there's a lot of creativity there. It's, really hard work and I really admire wedding photographers. And I think, as I get older, I could probably pursue that a bit more. But it is actually quite hard to get into because people need to trust you with their very, very special
Right,
day, which, it's very hard to start that. But I think I love music photography and event photography the most because you can't really recreate it. It's like this moment in time that you are lucky enough to capture forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially why I love doing the Gutwrench Records photography because this is a show in a very unique location that I know in 5 to 10 years time I'll be I cannot believe I got to record that and capture that.
Yeah.
But I think too the main thing is you have very limited opportunities to get the shot. Especially if you're having musicians that, in Canberra there's a lot more punky or rocky sort of music. And that's what I primarily shoot. And the musicians move a lot and you have these venues that are so low lit and the satisfaction of being able to capture a band having a shot that's in focus and you've lit it well enough, that's satisfying. But to have it actually be stylistic and creative and you put your own style onto that is doubly satisfying. So I think the challenge of it is and overcoming that challenge every single time is why I keep doing it.
Sounds super rewarding. Whereas, asking the bride to move slightly to the left.
Yeah.
And you have not infinite time. I mean, from the many weddings I've been to, they try and get the photos over and done with as quickly as they can kind of thing. I'm sure they're under the pump. But yeah, you can orchestrate stuff a lot more than it's a really interesting. I hadn't thought about all of those issues that you come up against in a dark small club or something like this.
Yeah.
When you talk about putting your own creative stamp on the photography, is that in post-production more, or is it also about the way that you approach the shoot there and then in the space?
I think it's both because, there'll be times when you are maybe sometimes shooting the same band alongside another photographer.
Yeah. And you're elbowing each other.
Yeah, it's back off, buddy. But Yeah, and they will be using different lenses to you. They'll maybe be getting different positions to you. But I think, you know, recently especially, I've been experimenting a lot with like light and like light streams and light leaks, and that's where you like leave the camera shutter open for a while. Yep. You have to stay really still and then you move.
Right.
And like that leads to some really incredible shots that, you can't really get in post. There's like another part of my style, I think, is like kind of getting up really close to the bands. I often shoot with a fisheye, and for that lens you have to get extremely close to the band.
Right.
And it's a lot about like lens choice, and I think also like I really prioritize like getting close to the band physically, but also like getting to know the people that I'm photographing. Like I want to be able to be friends with the people that I shoot, so that I can get these shots that actually represent the band. Because like, you know, you could shoot a band and put your own style on it, but then like if you know the music and it's like heavy metal, but they look all beautiful and bubbly and pink and peachy or something, it's like, well, that isn't quite accurate. So there's a lot to the actual behind the scenes stuff, but in the editing process too, like I get a lot of inspiration from maybe 90s really like high contrast grungy imagery. So typically when I'm giving photos back to bands, I'll have like say like 50 photos that are like warm and like kind of, I like to shoot like an edit in like this warm style, but then I'll also give them back 50 like quite high contrast grainy grungy images
in the house style, as it were.
Exactly right.
Sort of,
I think like I love trying to experiment with as much as possible, but I think trying to actually get to know people and trying to make the most of an environment, which is hard, but also trying to capture who the band really is at the same time, and delivering that is like the aim.
How deep do you go on something like trying to like portray a personality of a band? I mean, we can talk about things like you don't make a heavy metal band look pretty and, you know, soft focus and stuff like this. But like, does it go... I'm sure it can, but do you have a lot of time to go deeper on like not just what genre does this band play, but what is sort of their branding identity or their personality and stuff like this, and how can I portray that? Like, how much are you thinking about that during the shoot, and how much are you thinking about that after the fact when you're treating the photos? It's
so interesting. I think, and it's funny that we were talking about marketing before, because I have a major in marketing. The main thing is film, and then I had a little slice of marketing on the side. And I think like in music, photography is so important and branding is so important. And like, you know, when you're hiring a photographer, like these photos can last you for like quite a while if you utilize them for long enough. And eventually those images like do become your brand. Like for example, I've been shooting Spouse for a while, and at the last 2 shows there was a lot of red lighting, and eventually like, you know, and I'm up close in their faces and I'm getting like lots of movement in the photos and getting also some grungy shots in there too, and like that all indicates that this is a band that like, you know, is dynamic and is like in your face, and like it's in the moment and after the fact. I think before I like take on somebody new, I always ask like, you know, what about the photos that I've taken, like do you like gravitate towards? I'll look at their profile and like see like, oh, this trio is clearly like super friendly and open and chummy, and they like warm imagery, and you know, and then you meet these people, you try to like be like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna get in these people's faces because they're not in your face attitude. So it's both like on the day, beforehand and afterwards, really. Do you prefer the shoot or the treatment? Like, do you like one part of that process more? Or? I definitely like shooting over editing. Not like both are awesome. The control that you have in editing like nowadays is incredible, and like being able to put a style together and develop your style in editing is like so, you know, fulfilling. But the shooting, I always overshoot. I shoot thousands of photos and then I punch myself in the head after the shoot because I'm like
shit to go through.
Exactly. But yeah, I definitely like. There's so much energy when you're a music photographer. Like, especially for bands like Spouse and Our Last Broadcast, and like, you know, and especially in Canberra venues too, there's often like, there's no barricade. Like, you're in the pit with everyone and like getting bashed around, and then sometimes like I'll shoot on the stage and then like you're in it, like you can't escape it. And so I always leave these gigs like feeling really buzzed. Like, I'll go in super nervous and how am I going to shoot this? And then afterwards I'm like, that was the best.
That's sick.
Yeah.
It must be exciting to finally get to, you know, be able to open all the files up again afterwards and see, you know, what paid off and what didn't.
Totally. You'll shoot something and you'll be like, I got it.
Yeah,
I got the thing I was after. And like, I'm buzzed like talking about it now, and I get like, I'm just like, there's so much energy. That's so exciting. Like, I just love it so much.
That's beautiful.
Do you have that in real time where you get a photo and you're like, that's the one? Or is it usually when you look back that you're like, oh, that was really good?
It's always like in the moment. And like, I like go to turn to someone, I'm like, oh, I'm working. But like, it's always, I did it. I shot the thing. Like, cause oftentimes like, you know, there's definitely like, as they're playing, I'm like, oh, I can see an image in my head that I want to get, like, and I try and get that. And then I hopefully get it.
That's
and
amazing.
Yeah, it's the like, nothing tops it. It's so satisfying. And then too, to like be able to share that with, you know, the people that are hiring you, but also like your friends, and they're ecstatic about it. And then they share it on their platforms, and like, you know, and then word of mouth spreads, and you keep meeting lovely new bands, and like that energy continues all the time. So it's so exciting.
Beautiful thing. So cool.
I will say Georgia is very deliberate with her like planning and stuff. Like the few times where we've done like an actual photo shoot with Georgia, she's always sent like a big like mood board.
Oh, okay, cool.
Of like, here's like photos that I think, or like styles and aesthetics, and then she'll like find a bunch of locations where she's like, maybe we could go here within Canberra.
That's
and then,
amazing.
Like, here's the like color scheme of the location, and then here's how it ties into the color scheme of this shoot.
Now, is that only because you guys are pals? You're friendly with each other? Would you do that with a typical client? You try and suss out everything that you know could about them, and then prepare a whole mood board and stuff like that?
I think if it's like a quote unquote press shoot, like if it's like you know, we are going to go to a location and shoot for an hour or something, I'll definitely, you know, I definitely want to have that professionalism about it. I don't like the stress of rocking up to something and being like, so what do you guys think? Like, you know, they're hiring you because they trust you and they want.
Do you tell them what to wear?
I've recently shot at Last Broadcast, and I think they were like, we're wearing this. And I'm like, that's fine. And then I tried to think like, what are the colours going to be around them, and what is the aesthetic of this shoot going to be? But typically I have done some press shoots, and I'm like, okay, like wear potentially these colours because it'll go well with your brand as a musician, really. Yeah. And then they've like rocked up in like bright red when I said to wear like neutrals, and I was like, that's your brand now. Like, and that's like,
you're now a red band.
Yep, that's you. And like, it sounds like, I don't know, controlling maybe, but like I notice it every time as like a gig goer as well. Like if a band regularly posts like, I don't know, similar colors or in your face shots, or if they post like no photography, like I notice it all, and it tells me a lot about the band, like subconsciously. I'm like, like, oh, this seems like this kind of band I want to go, or like, they aren't really posting much at all, or like they don't seem to like know themselves well, like they confuse me a little bit, and that kind of makes me not want to get a ticket sometimes because I don't know what I'm going to go to expect. So so anytime I am doing a like press shoot, I definitely want to have professionalism. And like, it's funny because I'll be super chummy and friendly and with these bands and everything, but at the end of the day, like, if I'm asking for money for something, like, I want to be able to feel proud that, like, I delivered organisation and, like, I want it to be smooth for them. It's very scary to get your photo taken. Like, you want to feel like, oh, she's organised, or, like, she's got a plan and I don't have to worry. Like, that's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very professional.
Thank you.
It is scary to get your photo taken.
It is.
Yeah. Daan, I want to talk about Gutwrench Records. How long have you been running this? Well, what's the right word for this? I keep wanting to call it a collective. It's not so much a collective. You're an events organization. You're a record label. What are you? What is this?
Couple of guys.
Sorry.
My mum saw my LinkedIn the other day, and it says event booker, and she read it as event broker. And she was like, what's an event broker? And I was like, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't even really know what an event booker is, let alone an event broker.
How long have you been booking events as Gutwrench?
Yeah, I guess as Gutwrench, not that long really. Like, I think the first Gutwrench show was in 2022, October of 2022.
Who was that?
That was at Sideway with Better Left Unsaid, which is no longer a band, but it was a bunch of young women from a high school, and that was like one of their first shows, I think, and they were amazing. And then it was Blue Milk, I think that was maybe their last show. Okay.
First and last.
Yeah,
wow. And Sonic Reducer. That was their first headline show.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah,
that's quite a historic show.
Yeah.
I forgot about that until we were interviewing Sonic Reducer the other day, and then Louis was like, "Oh yeah, our first headline was the Gutwrench show." Which is kind of crazy.
Why'd you decide to put on events? I mean, you're playing in a band at the time. You're sort of maybe like over the last few years prior, sort of made your way into the local music scene and started making friends and stuff like this. You just thought, I want to do more things in this, like.
Yeah. So when I guess I started booking shows for bands that I was playing in. So I started doing that, I guess around the time that I started going to shows at like 16. Like, when you're like a young band, you just like sort of book things together. And then I feel like I really liked the back end stuff for whatever reason. Like, I really liked the planning and the organization and the emails, and I feel like I always really liked to, work out backline and stuff like that. That stuff just interested me. And
do you think it was because you were quite good at it? I think a lot of the time when people find themselves enjoying something, it's because there's like this natural like, oh, this is easy, and I kind of I'm clicking with it. What was it, that, or just for some reason?
Yeah, I guess
enjoyable.
Yeah, I guess there's like a certain amount of like, I'm just the guy who always did that, so maybe. But I guess I did it because I liked doing it, and maybe it's because I feel like I feel like I'm good at emails, even though that's like
that's a skill.
I feel like that's something I've always felt I'm good at, like writing an email and sending an email, like in like music context. So who knows if I'm good at it, but so I was just booking shows for like bands I was playing in and stuff, and again, I really liked the back end aspect and I liked the organizing, but I found it difficult to have organized a show and then to play a show and blah blah, and like I booked an East Coast tour and was playing that, and that was very like super fulfilling and super rewarding, but also the stress of like, booking it and then also having the stress and nerves of like playing the show the same night and blah blah. Like, I was just thinking like,
and while you're playing, if anyone has a question, they can't ask you.
Yeah. so I just thought like it would be fun to organize a gig one time where I just do that.
Right.
And I just like, you know, either one or the other. Like I go to a gig and I just play, or I organize a gig and I don't play. And that interested me. I don't really know why, but and then I wanted to start a record label. I've been wanting to start a record label since I was in high school.
Were you inspired by certain record labels? Like, do you have favorite labels that?
Yeah, I don't really know where this idea came from, to be honest. Like why I knew about labels, or why. Like I don't even know. I don't think I really knew what they did, other than I just wanted to have a label. One of the like sort of key moments was that I was reading an interview or listening to an interview with Courtney Barnett, who founded Milk Records, and Courtney Barnett was saying, you know, they were trying to put out their music and no labels would put it out, so they just made their own label. Right. And I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And I remember sending an email to Milk Records being like, I really want to start a label. And this was like years before Gutwrench. This is the beginning of your email sending career. Yes. Wonderful. And so I sent them an email and I was like, I really want to start a label. Like, you know, how do you do it? Like, I know Courtney did it for Milk Records and blah blah, and they very generously like sent me an email reply being like, here's a list of articles, fantastic, of like stuff, and like here's like a few interviews that Courtney Barnett did about that specific thing and whatever, and like just read them, and they said something along the lines of like, if you want to do it, like it'll happen. Yeah, sick. And I was still in high school at that point, and then it was a few years until I was like, I don't know, like 6 years later that I like actually like started doing anything with it. But it stuck with you. Yeah, I just thought that was just really nice, and the idea of being like, I just want to sunrise, sunset, and so too sets the sun on this free segment of this podcast. Hey, I've got an idea. Get your wallet out and give us some cash. You can hear the rest of this episode by going to www.patreon.com/Big Reef. Subscribe. There's an RSS feed that you can get access to by paying us $8.50 a month. And you can hear the rest of this episode, but not just this episode, any other damn episode that you would like to hear, the full thing. There's plenty of other rad shit you get by being paid subscribers to Big Reef, the band, I don't know what else we are. Content creators. Why not? So head on over and do it. Thanks very much. Goodbye.